Hey folks, and welcome to the Truck King YouTube channel. When you think full-size luxury SUV, I think most of us go right to Cadillac Escalade or to the German brands. But don't forget about the Infiniti QX80. For 2022, this thing has been redesigned. It has a whole new interior, and I want to give you all the details, so let's jump into it. Let's start with the walk around, and we have to look at the powertrain. So the QX80 only has one engine option. That is a big 5.6 liter V8. It makes 400 horsepower and 413 pound-feet of torque, sent through a 7-speed automatic transmission. And here in Canada, this QX80 has standard 4-wheel drive, although in the US, you can still buy just a rear-wheel drive model. The model you are looking at here is the Proactive 7-passenger. That is the top trim here in Canada. When you go Proactive, you get things like the 22-inch dark finish cast aluminum wheels, adaptive front lighting with auto leveling headlights, smart rear view mirror, intelligent cruise control, and lane departure prevention. And then just overall styling, the QX80 is imposing. It is big, and the styling just makes it look even bigger. From some angles, I always feel like it looks a bit like a hippopotamus or maybe a rhinoceros. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, that's just what my eyes see. But hey, why don't you weigh in now? Do you think this QX80 is good looking? And maybe more importantly, do you think it's better looking than something like a Cadillac Escalade? Let's look at towing and payload. So that hitch down there is standard on the QX80, and this vehicle can tow up to 8,500 pounds. Definitely one of the reasons why you might want to buy one of these big SUVs, just because the tow ratings are so good. And then let's take a look at the real world payload. Here on this QX80, we are talking about 1,322. Let's take a look at the back seat and the storage now. So I mentioned this is the 7-passenger version, so we get captain's chairs here. You get this center console with cup holders, and it has its own massive storage there, which is pretty cool. Now you can see I have my forward-facing child seat there. There are lower latch anchors here, and there are also lower latch here on this seat, but there's actually no lower anchors in the back and only one top tether on that seat back there. And there are top tethers on these captain's chairs. Now to climb into the third row, this seat actually tumbles forward and gives you a ton of space. And I'm not climbing in there, but I can already tell you that it's gonna be pretty tight for an adult back there. Plus the floor looks like it's a little bit high up, so your knees might be up in your chest. Now those seats back there are power folding. There's buttons right back there in the rear to do it. The passengers in the seats also have buttons right here, so they can fold them down themselves. And then actually the driver also has a set of buttons to fold these seats down, kind of right beside the steering wheel. Now I'll show you from the rear. The storage space here is pretty cavernous, and you can see the number with all the seats down. Let's look at the camera system here in the QX80, and I am actually backing into a parking spot. So here we go. You can see you get that rear view and then that top-down view. Oh, I think I went a little far there. That is a front-facing camera when you put it back into drive. And then, of course, you have this change view button here. That gives you rear and the side view. Really great when you are parking. You can see the line so clearly there. And then we just have a wide rear view, and then back to that rear and overhead view. Now we're out here driving in the QX80, and we have to discuss this new interior, but first we have to do a little history lesson. So about 4 years ago, both Nissan and Infiniti refreshed their full-size SUVs. For Nissan, that's the Armada. For Infiniti, that's the QX80. Now what they did, rather than adopting the Titan platform, is they shipped in the Nissan Patrol, which is sold in world markets. They shipped it to North America, and they rebadged it as the Armada from Nissan or the QX80 from Infiniti. Now the problem with that is that when it arrived, the interior in that vehicle was already a couple of years old. So when it got here, it already felt a little bit dated. Now, since then, Nissan has updated both the Armada and the QX80 to make sure they fit into today's market, and that's what I'm finally getting at. This interior is gorgeous. I think they nailed it with this interior update. The big 12.3-inch touchscreen looks good, works well. I really can't find anything to complain about. And then maybe the high point for me are these seats. Big, wide, comfortable seats with this nice quilted leather. The stitching that's in them looks really good. Yeah, these are really nice front seats. So there's no doubt, I think the Infiniti QX80 was lacking a bit in the interior department, but for 22, it feels just as modern as anything from Cadillac or from Lincoln. The interior here is modernized, but the way this Infiniti drives is definitely not. This is an old school recipe. Body on frame with a big V8 up front going through a four-wheel drive system. The suspension is comfortable and soft, but it's also kind of roly-poly, which just sort of accentuates the largeness. So yes, everything about this Infiniti just drives kind of big. There are no aspirations of sportiness here, at least from the suspension setup. Don't forget, we do have a 400 horsepower V8 under the hood, and one of the things I have to say about this Endurance V8, that's what Nissan calls it, it sounds really good. I remember when it launched in the Titan, it sounded incredible there too, so I'm gonna put my foot into it. Let's try and listen. Ready? This is a massive SUV, and it just jumps up to power, up to speed. There's loads of power here, and then again, the V8 sounds incredible. So powertrain wise, you have to give it to Nissan. It's a strong V8, but where it really starts to lack is in the fuel economy department. Now, I can put up the numbers on screen here, but in the real world, I've been averaging about 15 liters per 100. That is 15 miles per gallon, and that's just in regular everyday driving. So not the most efficient setup here in the Infiniti. Now it's time to test the four-wheel drive here in the QX80. It has an auto setting, a 4 high, and then a 4 low. And it also has a snow mode. Now I'm parked right here on some slushy, nasty, kind of muddy ice. So I'm gonna do some takeoffs and we'll see the differences. The first thing I'm gonna do, auto with traction control off, and we'll see. It is rear wheel drive base, so the power should go back first and then be rerouted to the front. Let's see how long that takes. I'm basically gonna floor it to make sure we get wheel spin. Let's see what happens. Okay, it did not do a bad job there of keeping me in a straight line. The back end definitely started to step out, but then it felt like it was counteracting that. I do have traction control turned off, so it let him spin, but I also felt maybe stability control or something else trying to pull me back in line. But again, with traction control off in auto mode, that was pretty good. But now, we're gonna try another setup. Okay, so now let's leave it in auto, and we'll go ahead and put it into snow mode. So now we should have the most controlled takeoff possible. I'm gonna floor it just the same. Let's see what happens. Here we go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, so I mean the rear wheels there were allowed to spin just a hair. It suddenly cut my power and then slowly rolls it back on gradually. Plus it felt like the power was rerouted to the front basically instantly, because in snow mode I'm sure it knows that you're gonna want that four-wheel drive. Let's take a bit of a step back and look at Nissan as a whole, because what Infiniti has done with this QX80 is what Nissan has done with a number of its products, things like the all-new Frontier or the all-new 350Z sports car, is that those are really heavy refreshes. They looked at those vehicles and they said, where do we need to add to them? What do we need to improve? Let's do that, but let's do it on the existing chassis, on the existing platform. And that's the same thing here with the QX80. I already told you this platform is quite old now, but they're making sure that on the inside, they're keeping it up to date. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing, that kind of strategy? No, it is not. And obviously in the development process, you're going to save money. I think the problem is where other automakers are coming up with these hybrid systems, plug-in hybrids and diesels and all the different technologies they're using to save fuel. They're coming up with them today, and if Nissan isn't working on those, well, they're going to fall behind. And frankly, it feels like they've already fallen behind when it comes to that sort of powertrain development. Now, I know they're jumping into electric vehicles just like everyone else. Of course, Nissan is one of the oldest players in that market with the Leaf, so they're putting a lot of their eggs in that basket. But that leads me to wonder what's going to happen to products like this QX80 or that full-size Armada. Will they just straight up go away, or does Nissan have a plan to bring in more fuel-efficient powertrains? For now, the only answer I have is we're gonna have to wait and see. Well, folks, we have arrived at the end of this one. So these updates for 2022 definitely make the QX80 competitive. And hey, if you're looking for that old school recipe of a big V8 and a four-wheel drive system in a luxury SUV, this is a solid choice. Now, like always, please go below and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this QX80. As always, while you're down there, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member, and then come right back here to Truck King to see what we're testing next. See ya.